We begin this story right in the action. Two huge explosions caused a bridge to split into two parts, turning those trapped on it into hostages at the mercy of the terrorists. You know, they have only one demand: the immediate release of their detained accomplice. Otherwise, they would use an explosive to disintegrate all the trapped civilians. What the attackers did not anticipate was that in one of the immobilized vehicles was a highly trained military veteran, who would be our hero in this story. But first, let's see how it all happened that Saturday night. Jack took his sister Maddie to have a good time, while at the same time, a prisoner was being led to an armored vehicle to be transferred to a new penitentiary center. However, what the agents were unaware of was that a terror group, was ready to carry out a massive kidnapping to free their comrade. Back with Jack, Maddie is thrilled he's back and asks to drive. He agrees, and as they switch seats, we see the transport vehicle pass by. If it hadn't been for that detail, they might not have gotten trapped in the bridge section and we wouldn't have a story to tell. Once the vehicle resumed its journey, the mercenaries' cars lined up right behind. In the middle of their conversation, the lagging cars took the opportunity to overtake, heading towards the bridge that crossed over the ocean. Following the instructions of their leader, Jimmy, our villain, the mercenaries stopped their cars in various positions, blocking all traffic on the bridge. Even the motorcycles were stopped by personnel disguised as workers. Just as the drivers were about to express discontent, the mercenaries emerged armed, ready to intimidate. Jack, a retired soldier, is always alert to his surroundings and sees a soldier approaching. Then a second explosion occurred, and a large part of the bridge collapsed. The cars near the explosion and their occupants fell into the abyss. At that moment, those still alive were overwhelmed by terror. Panic coursed through their bodies in one seconds. The people in a state of alarm hurried to get out of their cars, but the mercenaries were ready for that. Jack immediately dialed 911, but at that precise moment, the mercenaries emerged from their cars, aiming their weapons and forcing the crowd to return to their vehicles. Using a mask, Jim urged his men to fire warning shots. Screams echoed among the crowd. Everyone fled to their cars. Maddie, frightened by the gunfire, sought comfort from her brother. However, when Jack saw the mercenaries raise their weapons, his mind plunged into chaos. Memories of a failed mission before his discharge began to surface in Jack's mind, and his post-traumatic stress disorder was triggered. His gaze turned empty and unfocused. His body trembled as his sister's screams plunged him further into confusion. In a moment of disorientation, he mistook his sister for a deceased prisoner from that mission, until a gunshot brought him back to reality. The situation outside the car was critical. The mercenaries were threatening everyone to return to their vehicles, while a good portion of them were assaulting the transport containing the prisoner, the true target. Using flammable liquid, they got a guard out of the armored truck, executed him, and took his keys. All this while Jimmy, using a megaphone, shouted to the terrified crowd that they would use drones to monitor their movements. Anyone outside their car would be executed. Finally, he ordered the confiscation of everyone's phones. Among the hostages were officers who used radios to communicate with headquarters, but they were soon discovered by the mercenaries. A brave man ventured out of the car with a weapon, surprised one of the bad guys, and shot him in the face, but was taken down by a sniper shortly after. Unfortunately, the mercenary's mask was bulletproof and he was unharmed. The rest of the officers were forced into the trunks of their cars. After receiving the alert, the police dispatched numerous units to the bridge over the ocean. Meanwhile, the mercenaries continued confiscating phones and tying people to the steering wheels. Jack handed over his phone in good faith. However, his sister suddenly changed her mind and lied, saying she hadn't brought her phone. Maddie stayed strong even when one of the bad guys threatened her with a knife. Luckily, he didn't press the issue and just tied her to the steering wheel. After tying Jack in his sister's hands, they quickly left. Just at that moment, a distant alarm sounded. The police reinforcements were on their way. At that critical moment, Jack knew he had to act, so he dislocated his thumb to free himself from the restraints. Once free, he reset his finger and got out of the car. Cautiously, He approached a bad guy and attacked from behind. The struggle wasn't very long. It was vital that he didn't warn the others. So Jack took his knife and stabbed him in the neck. Kill silently. Hide the body, disguised as the enemy. Now, the war belongs to Jack. But the blood unleashed his memories again. The traumas of the war filled his mind, and he began to breathe rapidly, with a cold sweat soaking him. The memories of that year flooded his mind. He fought desperately to maintain his sanity, struggling to return to reality. He dragged the body away. Meanwhile, only one officer stood between the mercenaries and his partner. Jimmy was beginning to lose patience and hurried his men. Meanwhile, Jack threw the body into the sea and put on the mercenaries' clothing. He approached the front of the car and cut the bindings on his sister's hands. Then he told her that no matter what, she should tell anyone who shows up that she was alone and to stay calm and pretend she is still tied up. At that moment, Jimmy's voice is heard over the radio. He wanted all the hostages in their cars and to make sure they stayed there. Shortly after, the mercenaries discovered through the drone images that several police helicopters were flying over the area and were approaching. Annoyed, Jimmy calls the police commander and demands that he pull his men back or he'll see the hostages thrown off the bridge. But the commander drags out the conversation with his classic useless police talk. So Jimmy decided to give him a taste of what happens when he's underestimated. Before the helicopters can react, he pulls out an RPG and fires at one of the birds. Seeing their capabilities, the commander withdrew the remaining helicopters, not risking more lives by underestimating the villains. After showing the commander his firepower, our villain began a live broadcast for the entire nation. Millions of people tuned into what was happening and watched as Jimmy executed the last surviving officer from the truck. I hope they don't demonetize the video, revealing that they hadn't come to save their comrade. She is a traitor who lied to save her own skin. The truth will be revealed by the same corrupt government that protects it, a government that has dishonored everything they once fought for. But that night they must do things right or pay the price. Jimmy gave the Pentagon until 9 p.m. to reveal the truth about the case and admit that they falsely accused a dozen comrades who are currently serving sentences. If by 9 p.m., if they are not released and the apology is on their website, the country will see each execution on that bridge. Meanwhile, Jack, who had taken out another mercenary, picked up his phone and dialed his sister's number, and she explained everything she had just seen on her phone about the demands of the bad guys. Upon learning this, Jack set out to act. He couldn't allow everyone on the bridge to die. Meanwhile, the police commander tried to make a deal with Jimmy, exchanging some hostages for demands. But Jimmy had more than he could need, and they were armed to keep this party going for a long time. Jack, who was getting closer and closer to the armored truck, was ready to take out one of the mercenaries when an old man in a car spotted him. He told him not to do it, as there was a sniper on the truck ahead. If Jack killed the mercenary, they would surely kill him right after. The young man freed the old man, and while talking, realized he had military knowledge, which could be useful. Joe, the old man, told him that the sniper changes position every 30 minutes to keep an eye on the police at the dock. If he waits 2 more minutes, he might have a chance to get closer and eliminate him. Jack followed his advice, put on the mask, and began patrolling, pretending to be another mercenary. He went unnoticed until the position changed. By that time, the news had already reached 10 million views and the station had reported the hostage situation under threat. Jimmy's face was on every screen in the nation. His history as a war criminal marked him as one of the vilest people in the world, but he expected this. It's the classic media tactic to ensure no one protests when they try to kill him. Meanwhile, Jack quickly approached the transport vehicle and took care of the guards. He got into the car and faced the prisoner, wanting to investigate the mercenaries' motives. The girl's name is Doc, and she admits she was taken to testify against her former unit. She met Jimmy during the Vietnam War. At first, they were the good guys, but soon became corrupt. Now they are mercenaries who have killed many innocents. But something unites them, their loyalty to their own. That's why they want to get their comrades out and why they haven't killed her yet. Why don't I get those friends in my Warzone games? It's not like they plan to spare her. He knows he will die, he just doesn't know why they've delayed it so much. Jack offers her a deal. he will get her out of there and she will help him save his sister and the civilians. After that happens, he doesn't care if she gets lost in the crowd. However, before he could get her out, the driver he had attacked earlier died and his head hit the truck's horn, alerting the others who came to check. Jack tried for a clear shot but wounded a soldier in the thigh. Then bullets flew in an intense shootout. After the sniper shifted his attention to the bridge, Jack had no choice but to hide under a car. When things calmed down, he returned to Maddie. However, at that moment Jimmy had already discovered that he had lost 2 men, so he ordered all the cars to be checked. After hearing this, Jack decided to hide his sister somewhere else. Meanwhile, Doc managed to provoke the man guarding her, unleashing his fury and getting him to open the cage to beat her. But he didn't expect to find she had removed the handcuffs. Meanwhile, Jack's situation was much more complicated. Under the pressure of the mercenaries, no nearby car was willing to let his sister in. The hostages were so scared that none of them opened their doors to save Maddie, so Jack had no choice but to act when they were discovered. With a precise shot, he hit a mercenary in the face. This one was also saved thanks to the mask, but it gave Jack enough time to surprise him from behind. On the other hand, the sniper located Doc through his telescopic sight. Although he had a clear shot, Jimmy ordered her to be captured alive. So while Doc was trying to climb to the top of the bridge, she was surprised by the sniper, who dragged her down and subdued her. To his misfortune, Doc is more skilled than he seems. Not only did he humiliate him in combat, but he used his own chains to strangle him while Jimmy watched everything through the draw. After killing his trusted sniper, Doc sent a greeting to Jimmy and escaped again. Meanwhile, the drone finally located Jack's position, but the boy reacted in time and destroyed the device. Soon after, Maddie caught up with him and Jack admitted he was out of resources. There were still many mercenaries, and the best he could do now was to get her to safety using a mercenary's motorcycle. The gap between the bridges isn't that big. If they reach the right speed, they can cross and escape this whole situation. With this in mind, Jack floored it and began weaving through the cars in his escape. The engine's roar quickly drew the mercenaries' attention, who ran forward, firing. Upon realizing they planned to jump the gap, they warned Jimmy and he detonated another ball. The enormous fireball made Jack abort the plan, but his speed was too much and the momentum carried them to the edge. The brothers vanished into the dust and commotion. The brothers following him thought they had died and moved away from the unstable area, but in reality, they had fallen to the lower level of the bridge. Besides the scare, they were mostly unharmed. However, they soon realized that Jimmy had installed explosives under the bridge, more than a dozen bombs connected in series that turned that entire section into dust. Jack tried to get his sister away, but she insisted on saving everyone. It was her duty as a soldier. However, Jack confessed he was discharged after being declared unfit. The horrors of the past haunt him, and he doesn't think he has the strength to face elite soldiers like these. But Maddie reminds him that only he can make a difference. If he doesn't, everyone will die, including that. With renewed strength and pressure on their shoulders, they return to the bridge, where a man offers to protect Maddie if Jack leaves him a weapon. After getting Maddie to safety, Jack moved toward the bridge's center, but a mercenary surprised him. Fortunately, Doc honored his deal and saved his life with a precise shot to the back of the mercenary's head. The shot alerted the others and the exchange of bullets was intense. After running out of bullets, they separated and Jack used Joe's crane to lower himself to the lower levels of the bridge. Jimmy, who had grown tired of his men's incompetence, got out of the truck and caught Doc with his own hands and dragged her back there. He confesses to his old companion that he has a brain tumor and doesn't care if none of them make it out alive as long as the mission is completed, because he will die happy. Meanwhile, Jack is deactivating the main bomb. If he manages to do it, the rest will not have the firepower to destroy the bridge. Unfortunately, the bad guys find his sister and take her to Jimmy, who now has something to negotiate with. After deactivating the ball, Jack returned to the car, but Noah saw his sister and, realizing Jimmy had her, ran to save her, but seeing a gun to her head, decided to surrender. With the situation under control, Jimmy was ready to send a message. He will resume the live broadcast and force Doc to read a document. a document where she admits to having lied in her statement, and she requests that the charges against the arrested mercenaries be dropped and demands their release. After reading the document, Jimmy planned to execute Doc, but luckily Jack had a plan in place and just had to wait a few more seconds. The explosion causes panic, and the mercenaries scatter, thinking the police reached the bridge. Jack uses this to free himself again and fight Jimmy. Doc escapes with Maddie but gets shot in the shoulder. Fortunately, the guy who asked Jack for the gun is not completely useless and shows up to save them. Back in the fight, Jack starts with an advantage, but ends up being overpowered and Jimmy subdues him. Then he shows him his final car, a bomb hidden in the trailer, big enough to destroy everyone on that bridge. If Jack doesn't bring Doc in the next 5 minutes, everyone will die, since Jack is not willing to betray Doc after he saved his sister. Both plan a strategy to surprise Jimmy, but he has a pressure detonator, and if he lets go, the bomb will explode. The situation escalates and becomes very tense quickly. Even the police withdraw. They don't believe this will have a happy ending. Cornered, Jimmy decides to jump off the bridge with the detonator, but Jack gets ahead and starts the truck with the bomb, jamming the accelerator and throwing it right behind Jimmy, who takes his finger off the detonator and the bomb explodes, but he fails to destroy everyone. In the end, Jackson fulfills his role and becomes the hero, saving everyone by preventing a great tragedy. The sniper changes position every 30 minutes, but you only need 3 seconds to choose another